All right, I think we can kick it off. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. We are here to do a fun all women Ask an EV Owner panel. So we're going to hear from some great women. Next slide. Sorry, guys. I think we're having some technical difficulties. There we are. Generation 180 is a national nonprofit that's working to inspire and equip individuals to take action on clean energy in both their homes and their communities. Next slide. And we do this through a few campaigns. We really look at it as reframing the energy narrative. So one of our campaigns is Electrify Our Schools. That's a campaign that's working with K through 12 schools to transition to electric fleets, such as electric school buses, as well as transition into solar. Our other campaign is Electrify Your Life, and that's really working with everyday Americans on how to take clean energy action within both their homes, their communities, and transitioning to electric vehicles. And then our biggest one is Flip the Script. So it's a communication strategy. It really focuses on how we reach people, engage with them, and how we communicate with the everyday public. Next slide. So today's event is going to be super fun. As any questions come up for you all, please pop them in the question and answer. So we are going to kick off with some introductions. We're going to introduce our panelists that we have with us today. And then our amazing moderator, Michelle Lewis, who is with Electrek, is going to tell us a little bit about some EV facts. And then she's going to really jump into this fireside conversation with us today. And then we'll close out. So we will end on time. And so again, any questions that you have, please pop them in the Q&A section. I also want to take a moment to just say that we're thinking of anyone that has been impacted by Hurricane Helene, especially because we did have a panelist that had to drop out today because she is located in North Carolina. We just want her to know that our thoughts are with her and her family, as well as anyone else that's on the call that has had someone impacted by this hurricane. Next slide. So Michelle Lewis is with Electrek, as I mentioned. She is a reporter who is both an EV owner and an EV expert. Michelle will offer different insights into the latest trends and technologies in our EV space. And so she will she has some great questions ready for our panelists, as well as hearing some questions from our attendees. Next slide. And so we just want to introduce our panelists. We have Gigi, who drives an ID4 from Virginia. We have Kay, who drives a Chevy Bolt from Maryland. Nessa, who drives a Tesla Y from Virginia. And then, of course, Michelle, who drives both an ID4 and a Model Y from Vermont. So I'm going to hand it over to you, Michelle, and we can stop sharing screen.
Apologies, forgot about the mute. Thanks, Shakaya. It's great to be here. And for me, the goal of this hour is to have some fun and to demystify the whole process of going electric, especially for women. Somehow, this space ended up being pretty male, and it doesn't need to be. So if the attendees of this webinar, if you all leave feeling a lot more comfortable and like you've had your answers, your questions answered, and you're more intrigued and you are more inclined to go electric, then we've done our job. For me, I kind of fell into this space by accident. I was a history major, not a science major. And I moved into it because I was curious. I was editing across multiple sites. And my publisher said, "Are you interested in writing, learning?" And so I just learned on the job. And the more I learned about it, the more interested I became. And realized that going electric was non-negotiable. That if we don't go electric, well, we have a planet to protect, frankly. And so this, is just something that I felt I had an obligation to do. I also found out that it's a whole heck of a lot of fun and it saves money. And so it became my passion, to my huge surprise. Um, so my husband and I traded in our gas cars for a Tesla Model 3 years ago. We leased it and loved it. And so we have stuck with that. We moved to Vermont and moved to a rural area. And so we have 2 cars now because we live in the woods. So we need 2 cars. And so that's why we have an ID4 and a Model Y. The lease on the Model 3 ended. And now we have a Model 3 as well. And the more I learn, the more fun it is. And it's great. So when you see headlines that are like, oh, EVs are going down, sales are going down, sales are plummeting, it's not happening, it's going to pass. That's wrong. They're getting it wrong, okay? EV sales are not slowing down, okay? EV sales are just not growing as quickly as they were, all right? That's the fact. Sometimes mainstream media reads this wrong. When people say to you they're slowing down, that is incorrect. They're just not growing as quickly. A study landed on my desk yesterday from the Edison Electric Institute, which represents all investor-owned electric companies. Okay, here's the stats. The number of EVs on US roads is projected to reach 78.5 million in 2035, up from 4.5 million at the end of 2023. Think about the growth in just 12 years. All right, from 4.5 million to 78.5 million. Does that sound like a slowdown? So this is more than 26% of the nearly 300 million cars and light trucks expected to be on US roads in 2035. All right, so basically it's time to learn about EVs. Just this morning, I just finished writing a story about EVgo, just got a 1.05 billion loan from the DOE to expand their EV charger network. Fast chargers, they're going to build 7,500 DC fast chargers, and they're going to put it in community areas next to multifamily housing. People, this is not slowing down, and that's a good thing for all of us, because that means emissions is going to be reduced. It means that costs are going to come down for transportation. It means lots of good things. This is exciting stuff. So that's why I'm passionate, amongst other things, and you'll find out more about why I'm passionate about these things as we talk. So let's hear less about me. Let's talk to the other women. Let's learn more about them. Let's find out. Tell me, women, about how you feel about your EVs. Tell me how long you've been driving your EVs. Let's start with Nessa. Tell me about your EV.
Sure.
Driving it.
Yeah, so it's just over a year that my husband and I purchased our first EV. We are a one-car household, and so we got rid of our gas car and our EV only, and 100% no regrets. We did a lot of research before we made this purchase, knowing that I mostly work from home, but do have an hour 2-hour round trip commute once a week. My husband also works a couple hours away and occasionally needs to run it. My mom lives in rural West Virginia or rural Pennsylvania. I have family in rural West Virginia. So those were all big considerations if we were going to have one car that could get us to rural and urban places. So definitely have been saving money and enjoying it so far.
So what made you decide to switch?
Yeah, so we had been thinking about it for a bit and knew that we wanted to make our next car electric. a couple years ago, we also added rooftop solar, and we were overproducing. And so it was a great way to use that extra solar, stop buying gas, and continue to take action to decarbonize our lives.
Mm-hmm. Are you charging at home?
Yes. Yep. We charge mostly at home, and then when we travel, we charge on the road. I'm also lucky enough to have a charger at my workplace when I'm there, so able to do some of that as well.
Okay. And Gigi, how long? Tell me. I mean, you've been an EV driver for a while. Like, tell us how long. I mean, tell us how long, and kind of, can you tell us a little bit about your journey of like why and when you decided to switch, and just tell us what you want to tell us about your EV journey.
Sure. So I started out with a Prius a long time ago in the early days of Priuses. So I think that was like 15 or 20 years ago. And so then I am a bit of a gadget person, I think my friends would say. And so, the Prius was great, but then I was transitioning, and the Chevy dealership called me up going, there's this tax credit. You can get it for the same price as another Prius, or probably cheaper. And so then was really what started me with a real hybrid. You plug in, you get your 35, 40, 45, 50 miles. And so I had that for 3 years, and I'm vertically challenged. I kind of was like, it's kind of low to the ground, and I'd be like, I kept running over things. So I was like, I need to go SUV body style to get me higher off the ground so I can see a little better.
Yeah. Who else here has to have their seat all the way up on the Model Y, all the way up?
Yeah, my ID4 is well, actually, then I went with a Kia Niro hybrid.
Yeah.
And that was great. It was kind of like, well, that 10-year warranty. But then I also was reading that the battery technology was going to be changing. So I decided to do a lease with that vehicle, because I knew, and so it was a 3-year lease. And so then that was when 2020 or 2021, and all the COVID and the shortage of vehicles. And that's when I first had my eye on an ID4, but then you couldn't get one for 6, 8, 10 months. And the Kia dealership was like, okay, we got an EV that just came in and people are looking at it. If you want it, you got to grab it now. So then that's when I went first total EV, which at the time I was kind of like, my Kia Niro was kind of fun to drive, but it was kind of like the Prius. So, when I pulled out on a hill, I was like, come on, get up the hill. But the Kia EV, that's when I was like, whoa. And it actually kind of reminded me of my Chevy Volt. That actually had a lot of pickup, but again, I was running over things. And so then when that lease was up, that's when I just recently bought an ID4. And because for some odd reason, Consumer Reports is not a fan of the ID4, which drives me crazy because it was minor little things and I guess they have to have a villain, because Consumer Reports can't like every single little EV vehicle. That I actually got an amazing deal on the ID4. I mean, literally $18,000 off. I mean, it was 2023.
Yeah, they're
but
great.
brand
I think
new.
it's like $219 a month lease right now. It's really good.
Yeah. I mean, then that's where I was kind of like, wow, this is the same. So when people say, oh, the EVs are so much more expensive, between the incentives and the dealers kind of going, oh, they're not having the same level of volume as they anticipated, so there's more inventory. And so that's where you can really negotiate a good deal. You got to do the thing.
There's
that
much
a lot
better
of women...
deals. I get them monthly from Kelley Blue Book, and there are much better deals on EVs right now than there are on gas cars.
Yeah. But you still got to do that little trick of walk away, or, hey, I don't want to, it was funny because like I really wanted a gray car, and all they had was the black one left over. And I was like, I want a black one. So
Kay, what are you driving?
Hmm?
Kay, what are you driving?
Yeah, I'm driving a Chevy Bolt.
Okay, so
Um,
did you have to negotiate at the dealer?
I did Carvana.
Okay.
So no, it's, they put the price out there and you decide if you want it or not.
All right.
And that worked for me. I really did want to avoid the experience of haggling with a car salesperson. Though I think it's the same, if you do buy a gas car or an EV. But yeah, we just got the Chevy Bolt. It's a 2023 EUV. Got it in April. And I am a mom of 12-year-old twins, and I'm driving them constantly to school, to after school activities, to running errands. And I just was compelled to go electric because I was spending so much time in the car and just we're worried about climate change. And, it really felt like, well, this is a meaningful action I can take because there's zero, climate harming emissions coming out of the car. So every time I get in the car, it's like, it doesn't matter. But the thing that I love, I'm really actually surprised by the thing I love the most. I thought, well, this will make me feel better about things and, that it'll be a way I can make a difference. But I love driving this car. It's so smooth and zippy. And whenever we do have two cars. We still have a Subaru gas powered, but whenever it's like one of us are driving, and we don't live near a metro, so we really are more car dependent. But when my husband and we're always kind of not fighting over the EV, but it is like, can I take the Bolt? Because it's just so fun to drive it. It's just a great, I didn't even think I would care about a driving experience, but like, I don't mind doing the errands or driving as much because I get to be in this car.
Right. Kay, there's a question that's come in for you from an attendee.
Oh, sure.
They would like to know whether you've been on a long car trip in your Bolt that required multiple charging stops, and if so, how did it go?
Good question. I haven't yet. I do have to take trips to Charlottesville every so often. And so I have gone 3 hours in it. In that case, it's a non-issue. I mean, the battery can hold the charge the whole time. And then even if it couldn't, there are just places to charge everywhere. So between here, the DC area and there. So I haven't yet, but I'm just not worried about it because I have done other trips in other EVs with friends before. And you do a little bit more planning because, you just want to, make sure where you're going to charge. And right now it does take a little longer, in the Chevy Bolt, at least, because the battery, I think it's 300-mile range, but you just need to think ahead a little bit more because your car is going to be charging for at least 20 minutes, as opposed to like it's not quite as quick as a gas station, but that's really changing dramatically. Like I'm already thinking ahead to when we get our next EV, and we'll probably get a little bit larger one. And by then I know the battery will be, it'll be able to hold a charge longer. But there's one other thing I just want to add in response to their question. Most of the driving that everybody does all the time. Yes, you want to be prepared for a longer trip. Totally get that. But like most of the driving is just around town, at least most people I know and for myself. And one thing that an EV offers that there's a gas powered car doesn't is home charging. Like nobody can be like, I'm going to fuel up tonight when they have a gas powered car. Like you don't have a gas tank at your home, or at least I don't know anyone who does. And so, so like having chargers everywhere. Yes, we need to expand our charging infrastructure, and we are, but it's just a little bit less of an issue with an EV because you can always charge it home if you have a home charger, which most people do.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah, let's talk about road trips just for a second, because not only road trips, but I think we all are aware that one of the first questions that friends and family ask who don't drive EVs is, go on, one of you say it.
What about charging?
What about range anxiety? What about if you run out of charge? What about, and this is for some reason the thing that folks, focus on. And, I mean, we'll get there, but that's the thing that people are afraid of. Now, in the case of Teslas, the superchargers, because it is one network, although with the introduction of GM and other, like basically adapters, it will become interesting as it opens up to other makes and models. But and then also with kind of like more chargers being built, the build out of the NEVI system, which to our attendees is a government funded system that is just creating a huge network of EV chargers on corridors across the US so that you will not go further than X number of miles without hitting a charger, just the way that you do with gas stations. But when you take a road trip in a Tesla, you type into the map where you're going. So, I've road tripped between, St. Petersburg, Florida, and Vermont and Philadelphia. So you type in your address and it tells you stop here, stop here, stop here to charge. Boom, boom, boom. You don't have to think. As Kay pointed out, you have to think a little bit harder when you're in a non-Tesla because chargers like Electrify America and EVgo and ChargePoint, they're serving multiple models. And you can plan it. There are multiple apps to do that. That's fine. You just have to take a few more minutes to do it. But do you all want to talk about that a little bit? Like, Gigi, you've got more experience doing this in multiple models. Like, do you want to speak to, do you want to explain to our guests here today, like what that's like for you and thoughts on, challenges, not challenges, and just, yeah, what do you think?
Yeah, so with the ID4, it came with free charging at Electrify America, which
2 years of it, huh?
yeah, 2 years. And it's 30-minute sessions. So, but that's usually
Yeah,
all you
that's
need.
all it takes. Yeah.
That's all it takes to charge you back up to 80% or whatever. I was a little surprised that actually I get more miles when I charge at home on my level 2 charger than I do on a level 3 charger, which really I was like, what up with that?
Yeah. Oh, by the way, could you just quickly explain the difference between a level 2 and a level 3?
So yeah, a level 3 is a fast charger, a DC fast charger. So it will charge up your car in 30 minutes, or depending on how low you've gotten the miles. It does seem to be slightly different speeds. There are ultra, like with the Electrify America, there's the ultra and the hyper. That they're different kilowatts, and so the more kilowatts, the faster it will go. Now that somewhat depends on your car battery as well, from my understanding. Michelle probably knows this,
and the
better than
number
I
of
do.
cars on the chargers. Yeah.
And that really surprised me.
Yeah.
I got to one charger once. Actually, I went to the Electrify America, and all these BMW owners were there. I'm like, and unfortunately, a couple of the chargers were having issues. So some were on the phone with the Electrify America going, what's going on here? And so then I was like, I'm now going to try to compete with these BMWs. So I just looked on the app and found another one 3 minutes away. And I got there, and so I plug in, and I was just like, what? This is going to take a little longer than it usually does. But then the car right beside me unplugged, and then it went fast to charging up. But I was like, I didn't realize that there would be this allocation that was spread out by how many cars, and who gets there first gets the faster speed. But then once they unplug, then you get the faster speed, and then the next person that comes along is a little slower. But anyway,
that's something that software actually balances. And so with DC fast chargers, they're getting ever smarter all the time. And so the software is quickly, like developers are quickly developing software so that it's balancing the load to kind of even it out between the chargers, so that like it's not being hogged by one. It's going to get better. That's the too long didn't read. It's going to get better, faster, quicker. Like, it's amazing to me what lands on my desk every day the innovations are just mind-blowing. That's why I never get bored.
And level 2, which is what you install at your home. I mean, a trickle is where you plug into a 110,
Mhm.
and it will take all night to get 35, 40 miles if you're a hybrid, or, or actually
Yeah,
not
that's
even
just a
totally all
standard
night.
outlet. Yeah.
It's standard outlet. So that's like and actually they say a little bit of a trickle charge is supposedly good for the battery.
Hmm.
The level 2 charge seems to be the best for the battery. That it's not that the DC charging fast chargers are a little harder on the batteries
Mm.
because it's sending so much voltage, I guess. Michelle, you know this. But
Yeah.
that's where I'm guessing I get more miles when I do the level 2 charging at home. And it wasn't that expensive to add a charger. It's just like installing a dryer line. Electrician comes out. I mean, for the kind I got, I didn't get the fancy charge point. I just got something off of Amazon that I just plug in, and it's
Yeah.
actually portable, so I could take it with me in case I had a friend who had that level of outlet available.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it was less than $1,000 between the
Oh
electrician
yeah,
and the.
there's plenty of affordable options. And the cool thing about those portable chargers is they have different attachments. And
Ooh.
so like I have one that you can take off the 240 volt attachment and put on a 120 volt. So you can just plug it into a regular outlet. So like
Yeah.
when I go to my dad's house, if I want to just plug into the old normal outlet on the outside of his house and just, plunk 3 miles and 3 miles an hour, but I just leave it there for the weekend and I'm ready to go. And you're right, it is good to slow charge your car. I mean, when we lived in St. Petersburg, Florida, that's how we charged our car for ages. We just plug it into the normal outlet and it was fine. And now we have a level 2, which charges about 30 miles an hour. And that's the best way to do it. And then if we only use fast chargers if we're on a road trip, and you plug in and it takes about, as you say, about 20, 25 minutes, depending on how many miles we've used. And frankly, it's not inconvenient because it's good for you. It means you get out of the car, you go to the bathroom, you get some food, you mess around, you get a coffee, and by the time you're done all that messing around, it's ready to go. So it means that you stretch and you take care of yourself.
And
before
yours
you-
people are doing that anyway.
Exactly.
They're taking a gas powered car on the road. So
Right.
it's just a little bit of a shift in mindset, I think.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally, for
And
sure.
it's fun talking to the people. It's fun talking to the people at the chargers. I mean, especially if they have like a
I've
car.
noticed
I've been
that too.
eyeing, going, so tell me about your Rivian.
Yeah, it's like there's
Oh.
it's like there's a community a little bit. We have a
Mhm.
public charger right down the street from where we live, and
Mhm.
people sometimes will chit chat. It's like you're part of a little community.
Oh, I agree. And I also find that sometimes when I'm charging, people will stop and ask questions, which I think is great. Or
Mhm.
again, yeah, we'll compare notes. It definitely is a community. I learn things and I share things. So
Yeah.
so we have some more questions. Totally understandable. In light of the weather that we've had this week. Someone has asked, is there any information about owning an EV in a flood prone area? Yes. Now, before I share information, is there anything that any of you would like to share about owning an EV in a flood prone area?
I had mine charging out in this torrential downpour. I totally forgot that it was gonna, and I was like, oh, I left it charging, and it didn't impact. There was no water, like there no water went into where the charger was plugged in and
Yeah.
zapped anything. So
That's an excellent point. I'm glad you raised that. There is no problem charging in a torrential downpour. Rain does not affect your car while you're charging. It is totally fine. Great point. You don't drive a car through floodwaters. It doesn't matter whether you're driving a gas car, a plug-in hybrid, a hybrid, or an electric car. You just don't do it. It's not good for your car. It's not safe. period. You just don't. You don't leave a car in floodwaters, regardless of what it is. It will be ruined. Cars do not like salt water, regardless of what's propelling it, period. EVs are designed to protect against water damage, but nothing survives floodwaters. Nothing. So there have been stories about EVs catching on fire in salt water. But gas cars can catch on fire in salt water because gas cars also have batteries. You just shouldn't leave your car in a flood-prone area. You know, my parents live in Clearwater, Florida, and they flooded and they moved their cars before the floods came because they will flood. So it's just not a good idea. However, rain is fine, and yes, you can take your EV through a car wash. So I hope that helps. Does anyone want to add anything to that?
Yeah,
I would throw in there. Oops, sorry, Kate. Go ahead.
no, you go ahead.
Well, that's with the ID4, I really did want all-wheel drive, because I did feel like with my previous vehicles that being like, I think the Kia Niro was a front-wheel drive vehicle, not a rear-wheel drive vehicle, and I just didn't always feel that great in snow or a huge downpour. So that's one of the reasons why I chose an all-wheel drive vehicle. It's brand new to me, relatively brand new, and I haven't had to go through any snow yet or ever again, maybe. So that's where that's why I chose the all-wheel drive, because I've had previous ones be with the rear-wheel drive not feel as solid.
Yeah. Don't you think that's like all cars though?
Yeah.
Yeah. Because like we brought a rear wheel drive up here in Vermont and it was, you know, an EV, but like whenever it snows, it just ended up like, because we didn't know we were going to move up here. So it just ended up like, you know, taking a holiday in the garage. So
Reason to stay home.
and now it's gone and it's been replaced by an all-wheel drive because the ID4 was an all-wheel drive and it does very well with its snow tires. So I would say, you know, all-wheel drive versus rear-wheel drive, you approach it the way you would any car. It just depends on where you live and what you need, you know. What about your cars, Nessa and Kay? What do you guys have in terms of the drives?
I have all-wheel drive, and also living in the mountains of the Shenandoah Valley and driving around. Made that choice.
Okay, what's your
Yeah, I do as well. But I mean, it's very new. I haven't had the occasion to drive it in really bad weather. But I was just going to add to the conversation, you know, about EVs and emergencies situations in general. You know, the studies have shown and experts have weighed in and said, you know, EVs are safe. They're safe in emergencies. You know, I think people get worried because it's a new technology or unfamiliar to them. So they just draw conclusions, and there's a lot of misinformation out there. And the truth is that they are safe, and some might even say they're safer because, like, for example, fires, like gas-powered cars are actually more likely to have fire issues than, I'm not saying people shouldn't drive gas-powered cars for that reason or something, but just it's more common in gas-powered cars than in EVs. And then certainly in emergencies, you know, you can rely on the battery during when you're out of, you know, you lose electric power in your home, you can rely on your battery. I've heard stories even just recently around with the recent Hurricane Helene cases. I've read articles, I've talked to people that I know that they were able to help their neighbors out because they had an electric car, and they were able to like help people do Wi-Fi, help people, you know,
refrigerators?
So
yeah, there's a guy on the Rivian forum who's running 2 refrigerators off of his Rivian. Like he ran an extension cord off of his Rivian and ran 2 fridges and a freezer off of it for like 3 days. you know.
That's
And
amazing.
one
Yeah.
of the biggest killers in these emergency situations where the power is out is carbon monoxide poisoning from generators, because people put these generators in their garages or in their houses, and then they die of carbon monoxide poisoning. But if you need cooling, or if you need heating, like in the case of the big freeze in Texas a few years ago, you can run your car in your garage with an EV because you will not be poisoned by carbon monoxide. So I had the most amazing photo of a lovely older couple with their 5 cats in their Tesla in the garage, smiling with their cats, nice and toasty in their Tesla. And because they could do that, because there was no chance of being poisoned. You can stay warm in your car, you know? You can help other people with your car. And vehicle to grid is going to make that increasingly possible. You know, run your house with your car. So, yeah, you know, your EV is going to do more good than harm in a crisis situation.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, thanks for bringing that up, Kay. Those are really good points.
Sure.
Can I bring up
Someone
another?
Yeah, make a point, Gigi.
Well, I would say be sure to get heated seats when you get an EV. That's one of those things that people don't realize, that when you turn on when you blast the heat on most EVs, it does make your range go less. Now, of course, if you're just commuting to work, it's no big deal because you can easily charge up at home. But if it's freezing cold and you're doing a long distance drive and you're cranking your heat, then that will impact your range of miles. And that's where heated seats and now these fancy heated steering wheels, I find I never turn on my heat in my EV.
That is an excellent point. I don't know. Nessa, does your Tesla have a heated steering wheel?
It does.
It
So
does?
does the Bolt. The Bolt
Yeah.
does too. I love
Yeah.
it.
So in the winter, I turn on my heated steering wheel and my heated seat before I turn on the car's heat. Yeah.
Maybe it's because I haven't had a chance to like check the Model Y to see if it has a heated steering wheel, because I've only had it a few months, but the ID4 does, and it is like, there's few things in life better than that heated steering wheel. It's just like, especially in Vermont in the winter time. I'm so glad you brought that up, because winter range for folks who live in colder climates, yes, winter range is a thing. You just adapt to it. Just go, okay. What percentage do you guys think your range falls in your cars in the wintertime?
This past winter, I would say mine went down 8 to 10% on a 1 hour drive, my commute.
Okay, so in the Virginia mountains, like 8 to 10%. Okay.
When it's cold, kind of at freezing or colder. Yeah.
So around like 32-ish. All right.
And maybe a little less above that, but yeah.
Okay. And what do you think, Kay?
I'm not sure yet.
Okay, because you haven't got there yet. Got it. Yeah. You're like, let you know. Come back to
I'll
that.
let you
Sorry,
know.
that was an unfair question. I
That's okay.
apologize.
That's okay.
Gigi, what do you think?
I mean, I never turn on my heat because I luckily am being in Virginia, so it never gets bitter cold like Vermont. So since I never turn on my heat, it doesn't have any impact at all. Now, if you drive on the interstate a lot, that does impact your range because you're going, you're going the speed limit. And
Always.
then, always. And I'm surprised air conditioning hardly impacts it. That was a real surprise for me, that just like with my solar panels, I seem to be able to run my AC in my house with the solar panels and hardly has any impact on it. But heat seems to draw more off of the solar panels.
Okay. Well, I find that I have to plan. If I drive 65, which is the speed limit, in the dead of winter, which is, it's cold here, and use the heated seats and the heated steering wheel, which is frankly just it's better than heat because it just feels so nice. But I need to be conservative, and I will kind of just assume that I'm going to lose up to 20%. And if I assume that, then I'm fine. And so I just, just make an allowance. It's kind of like your phone, right? My iPhone is getting on, and I just have to assume that about that. Or my Mac, I just have to assume that it's going to lose charge because it's not brand new anymore. And so that's just how I see it. It's like it's another tech appliance that as it gets older, it's going to do that. And now my car isn't older, it's just colder. So you just adapt. It is what it is. I mean, frankly, a gas car isn't going to be as efficient in the extreme cold either. So it's just the way it is. But it's just something we wanted to share with you all, because it's just something, it's just education. It's not, we don't see it as a detriment. It just is something you need to know. Has anyone, this is another question, it's a good question. Has anyone bought their car used? Great. Is there anything you can share, Kay, about buying a used EV and how did you make sure it was good with Carvana and so on? And what considerations did you take into account and so on?
Yeah, great question. You can have with Carvana, it's interesting. They have you purchase the car, like you don't take it for a test drive. You know what model you want and you purchase it online, and then you pick it up and you have 2 weeks to return it if you change your mind. So if anyone's using Carvana, my recommendation is to go test drive the car that test drive different cars through dealers first. And then if you decide you want to purchase through Carvana, you see a good deal there, then you're ready to go. And you do have 2 weeks to return it. So what you can do is, well, first of all, Carvana, this is their policy. They do a whole inspection, and they check all these different boxes, and you can see that full report, and they share that with you. You can also, after purchasing it, go take it to a place to have an inspection done that you pay for if you want to do that, because we considered doing that. For some reason we didn't. I can't remember the whole reason, but yeah, it was definitely a thought process. But I mean, I think that applies for any kind of vehicle that you buy used. If it's a gas powered car, you also are in the same boat. You don't know if it's up to standard. So yeah, Gigi, you want to add something?
Well, but there's so many less moving parts. That's the thing, is that I think with a gas vehicle, there are more things to go wrong that when you buy used, that you really need to have that inspection, I mean, it's always a good idea to do an inspection, but that is probably one of the best things I love about the EV. I love many things, but that the maintenance is like a big golf cart. And then with the regenerative braking, it's even hard to have the brakes go bad on you, because you barely touch the brakes, because with the braking, you actually just take your foot off the gas pedal and then it starts to slow itself down without using the brakes. And I love that feature. It's just like, okay, I mean, maybe the people behind me want me to speed up and not slow down before I get to the red light, but I just, and the dealers will try to sell you a maintenance package, and your brakes when they go, and I'm like, the brakes won't go,
including oil change.
That is something that appeals to me. I totally agree, Gigi. Like, that was a very appealing reason for why I decided to get an EV too, was I knew they require less maintenance. And so it's so much more convenient. So yeah, that was definitely in the plus category.
So what maintenance have you all had to do on your cars so far?
None.
Air filter.
I had to put air in the tire. We had to put air in the tires.
Yeah. Like stop and put air in. Yeah. Actually, you reminding me, I need to put air in my tires. And
right.
Yeah, I've had to change the air. We did change the air filter in our Tesla Model 3 because it was getting a bit stinky. So we watched the YouTube video and changed it ourselves. And we didn't even get in a fight. It was amazing. My husband and I. and put in some wiper fluid. Oh, and rotated the tires.
And how long have you had your car in all?
Oh, I'm thinking about the 3-year lease cycle.
Yeah.
Yeah, we rotate. It's important to rotate your tires because the car is heavy. So that's an important bit because you don't want to you don't want them to go bald. You know, so to take care of your tires, like get them rotated. But in terms of the body of the car, nothing. You know,
I
it's
don't
not
miss
like,
going
oh,
to the-
this broke, you have to get this replaced. Nothing. It's good. It's good stuff.
Yeah, I don't think people realize that, like no spark plugs, no motor oil, no oil changes, so
Oh,
many,
the carburetor's busted. You got to get that replaced.
none of that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, okay, it's kind of like, it's like, okay, up front, it might cost more, although it might not, because right now it's
Yeah.
$219 a month, you know, 0% down or 0% financing. It might cost more up front, but it's not going to cost more in the long run. You know, you get 2 years of free fast charging, or you're charging on solar or whatever. So exactly. Wait, and who's leasing right now? I'm leasing one car. Nessa, are you leasing?
No, we purchased it.
Okay. Did you buy, Gigi?
I leased previously,
Okay.
and that's the thing. Sometimes you do have to educate the people at the dealership about how their lease thing can work. Because like Volkswagen was very upfront going, oh, well, we'll take the $7,500 off the lease price because we'll be getting that as a company, back from the government or back from the incentive thing. And
Right.
then, of course, when I told Kia about that, they were like, what? And we're like, I don't think we do that. And then they did do it. But that's the same thing that would happen with the Volkswagen people, that they didn't know that the incentive could be taken off with recent changes this year, that the incentive can be taken off the base price rather than wait until you process your taxes. And especially if your tax situation doesn't be able to use the tax credit because you have your taxes taken out of your paycheck, that is a really important. That actually made me want to buy the car this time, just because I could get it taken off the price, the base price.
Right. Okay. So let's talk. This is a really important point. Okay. Whether you buy or whether you lease, and whether it's new or whether it's used, the Inflation Reduction Act, which was a law that was passed in August 2022 by the Biden administration, provides a $7,500 tax credit towards new EVs. Not all of them. It has to do with being US built or US, certain components built in the US. And then there's a tax credit for used EVs, which was, Kay, do you remember what it was? Is it 4,000?
Yes.
Okay,
Yep.
great. And for those cars that do not qualify for the IRA tax credit, 9 times out of 10, the car manufacturer is providing some sort of rebate that matches it anyways to stay competitive with the ones who qualify. Now, that tax credit used to be, as Gigi said, you file it in your taxes at the end of the year. However, the IRS changed the rule so that it applies like a rebate, so that the car dealership or Tesla, like they just apply it and take it right off the price at the front. So this is a fantastic incentive for buying or leasing an EV. $7,500 off the price, whack. And that's at the federal level. And at the state level, it depends on the state. A lot of states have really great rebates or utilities. I mean, Vermont has state incentives, and my utility gave me $2,200 check just for going electric. Hooray. So yeah, I mean, it's important to check into this stuff because like Colorado has really great incentives. I think New Jersey does. I mean, it's really important to check to see, and don't assume if you're going through traditional OEMs, traditional car dealers, don't assume that they know, because they don't always know, as Gigi said.
I'll add
Sometimes you
something to
have to
that.
educate them.
Yes, I think that is for sure true. And I do think they're getting better. And I think in certain areas, like I'm in the greater DC, Washington, DC area, and I was surprised I went to a couple dealerships to test drive different EVs, and they were really knowledgeable. So I
Yeah.
feel like, and I was shocked by that because
It
I heard
depends
so
on the
many
dealership.
stories. It depends. I think they're getting it and they're understanding this is the way of the future and the present, and we need to understand this stuff.
Yeah. Depends on the state, depends on the dealership.
Right.
My VW dealership is very enthusiastic and works very hard to be knowledgeable. It just depends.
Mhm.
You know, but as Gigi said, she had to teach them. So
Mhm.
yeah, it really
I would
depends.
throw in there also looking at rural areas that got their 1 or 2 EVs at the dealership, and it's probably sitting on their lot longer than they are sitting on the lot in DC or
Oh
Northern
yeah,
Virginia.
yeah. I'm
Because
sure you're right.
they
Yeah.
they are more incentivized to give you
Mhm.
a good price.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
Right,
you're right. Fair point.
right.
The other thing, speaking of incentives, the states and the IRA, the Inflation Reduction Act, their benefits, there's funding in there for home chargers also. So that helps too. That's a really nice
Absolutely.
perk.
Yes, I totally agree. My final question to all of you is, what do you find the most fun about your cars?
Well, I'll share. It's so zippy. I love it. It surprised me how much I love that. I didn't think I would care about that. I was like, I'm doing this for the climate and we need a new car anyway. And it was like, oh my God, I love driving this car. And I have to go on the Beltway in the DC area a lot. And I was surprised at how safe I feel in this car, especially because I have to switch lanes quickly and I can accelerate so much more quickly. I just feel more comfortable and safe. So that was awesome.
Mm-hmm.
I totally agree. I just love being able to be like, okay, I can get around you, or I can get away from you, because there's some crazy drivers out there
Yeah.
these days.
Yeah.
So when I start seeing somebody, especially even on the big interstates, there, when you see some, like you can get around a truck quickly. I do, like Kay said, I feel so much safer. And then the VW ID4 is such a solid vehicle. I'm sure that I've never test driven a Tesla, but it's just such a solid vehicle that I'm like, I just feel much safer in it.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I would say that I mean it's a new car, it's a 2023, so it has lots of features that I never had in my old car, heated steering wheel, and also just not having to ever go to the gas station. I come home and I plug it in, and it's easy. It's so easy. So I really appreciate that, and also that more EV chargers are popping up along the interstates, and hotels and restaurants are adding them, and that makes road trips even easier.
Yeah. I think what I surprised myself the most about, excuse me, was that I was never really like a car person. Like, I like cars, and I'm like, oh, this is cute. Like, I used to have a Mini. I loved it, but it was cute. I got in it, I drove, I got out, And then we leased the Model 3. And then I got in it and I was like, oh, this is spacey. This is cool. And it had a great sound system. And then I found out that it accelerates really fast. And so you hit it and it goes, boom. And you're like, woohoo! Really surprised myself by how
Same
much
here.
fun it was.
Yeah.
And then when there's like some guy in a pickup next to you, he's like, I'm going to show her in her like fancy, stupid car. Like, oh yeah. And that was a part of me I did not even know existed. So there you go. That's the fun bit.
This has been a great conversation, hearing the different diverse answers and why you all drive EVs, what your experience has been. And so I just have one last fun question. And I'll start with you, Michelle. Will you ever go back to a gas-powered car?
No, I cannot even imagine. And when I've had to drive gas cars, I'm just like, blah. Like
What
in
about-
rental, and they're like, you give a gas card, and you're like, I hate this. It's not the same. It's not the same. It's like part of my DNA now.
Nice. What about you, Gigi?
No, I actually still have a gas convertible, but I hardly ever drive it. And it's actually a BMW that's an old 2004. And I've been tempted to sell it, going, I don't want to deal with the oil changes. I don't want to deal with it anymore. And so, but it is nice to put the top down every once in a while. But I probably it's just dry rotting, sitting there, not being driven. So no, I won't go back to a gas. And anybody wants a BMW 2004, let me know.
What about you, Kay?
Oh, no way. I mean, we have a second car that is gas powered, and already I'm like, okay, when can we sell this and get an EV? It's just, yeah, like I said early on, we kind of fight over who gets to drive the Bolt because it's just so much more fun.
Nessa, take us home.
No going back for me either. And I love introducing friends and family and neighbors to it, taking them for a ride, and just sharing what the experience has been like. So no going back.
Awesome. Well, thank you all for taking the time to have this fun conversation with us. I learned a lot, as well as someone who's in the market to shop for an EV. And I'm sure our audience also learned a lot. And so we just have two last things, which are some call to actions. If you need something to do that's tangible after this call, right? One thing is, if you're not an EV owner yet and you're on the call with us, sign our Going Electric pledge. And we'll pop that URL link right in the chat for you. And then the other opportunity is, if you are already an EV owner and would like to share your experience of what it is, what it's like public charging, then we have a partnership that's going on right now with Consumer Reports, and we would love to hear your feedback on that public charging. And if you would like to connect with me or have any questions that you felt like we didn't answer today, please don't hesitate to reach out to me offline. Have a great day. Thank you, guys.
Thanks very much.
Thank you,
Bye.
everyone. Bye-bye.
Thanks.